If you were advising a young student entering the workforce now what their career direction should be, and they were thinking, maybe I'll go to work for Google, or should I go and work for Goldman Sachs, what would we advise them? Where's the best industry to go in the future? And we both picked our favorite debater to come on and take one side or the other of that debate. And so to debate Google versus Goldman, the company that can do no evil against the giant vampire squid, we have the Nobel Prize winner Bob Shiller, who is going to argue, I think, for Goldman. And on the other side, Vivek Wadhwa, who is a great academic at the carrot top of academics, in fact, according to the CFO of Twitter, who is at Singularity University, has advised the government on all sorts of innovation sides of things. And so I invite them both up on the stage to join us. Greg, maybe you want to talk briefly about how this is going to work.
First of all, it's great to be here. You can tell I'm representing the technology industry because I think I'm the only person in the room without a tie. So this is just a fun debate about whether graduates should go into technology or finance. And I'll let the debaters speak for themselves. But I will say that Professor Shiller sent his first tweet today backstage. You can find him on Twitter now at Robert J. Schiller.
Fantastic.
Very exciting news. Breaking news at The Economist.
So the way this is going to work is each of our speakers is going to speak for 5 minutes. Then Greg and I are going to ask each of them one question each. They're going to reply briefly in about a minute. Then we're going to throw it open to you for a few minutes, and then they're going to have 2 or 3 minutes to wrap up each at the end. We're going to take a vote now, and we're going to take a vote at the end to see which one has managed to sway you. So all those who think that you would advise our archetypal, I guess we'll call them a Harvard or Stanford student who's thinking about what they're going to do next, who would advise go and work for Google?
Wow.
And who would advise Goldman Sachs? So I think the Googles are probably 2 to 1 ahead. Is that, you going to agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say about 2 to 1.
Okay.
This is the Economist conference, right? It's not South by Southwest.
I told everyone I was coming into hostile territory.
So with no further ado then, Bob, I'm going to hand the poison chalice to you, and you have 5 minutes starting from now.
Okay. I actually do this. I do advocate this sort of thing. But as an economist, I have to say, we don't all do the same thing. And everyone is different. So I'm not going to really answer that question. The question is it a good idea for people who find it interesting to go into Goldman Sachs? And I would say yes. I've written a book associated with my undergraduate finance course called Finance and the Good Society. Okay, I guess that's maybe why you picked me. I wrote this book. Right now, finance is excessively maligned. You know, prejudice has developed, as you know. There's prejudice against all sorts of people. Right now, it's finance. I want to reflect at what it does for our society. Now, my assumption is I'm not talking to students who want to make a lot of money, okay? Coincidentally, they'll probably make more money at Goldman Sachs, right, than at Google. But I'm putting that aside. I'm assuming that my students are idealistic and see the importance of, they want to make their mark on the world in a good way. So I'm thinking that actually I'm distinguishing that from wanting to win accolades or the admiration of their friend. We have some very genuine idealistic students. And they right now feel that they couldn't possibly go into finance. That's wrong. Finance is the place where you can make your mark on the world. And it has to be a personal, maybe I'm overdoing this a little bit.
Keep going.
It has to be a personal commitment because you won't get credit for it. Now, they've made a Hollywood movie about the founder of Facebook, okay? I don't know if he's happy with that movie, but at least they made a movie. They do not make Hollywood movies about famous. Well, when they make them, they're devils. They're evil. So the public kind of hates you. And it's a burden that you must carry with you all your life if you go into finance. But you will know inside you that you've made things happen on a bigger scale than you ever would have at Google, okay? What it is every human activity that matters has to be financed. You cannot do good things for the world all by yourself. Any important human activity involves groups of people who have access to resources to actually do things. And this is just a fact of the world we live in. Everything that is good that's done is financed. Most good and important activities have a financial basis, and they need a financial basis so that they can last over the centuries. I'll give the example of, I'm not schooled on the Economist magazine, tell me if I'm wrong, was founded in the mid-19th century, and it had a peculiar financing. Weren't there these 4 women who were personally behind the Economist magazine? It was a family business in a sense.
There's a number of financiers, yeah.
But these were
past
my students, okay?
Yeah.
This kind of, you are a financier with principles and purpose. It's not about making money. So the people who kept the Economist going were people who believed in the Economist magazine, and they were they were providing the resources for it to develop into what it has. This is what I want my students to do. So I tell my students that your personal identity shouldn't be as someone who's making a lot of money in finance. Your personal identity builds around particular interests that you have, that you want to, I'm saying intellectual interests, moral interests that you have that you want to promote. So I'm actually thinking of bringing in to my students this next semester someone who runs a venture capital firm that specializes in healthcare. Now, I met this person that I'm thinking of bringing in. I think he's as good as anyone in this world for what he does. Now, I don't think that he has the followers who appreciate. I have 27 seconds. So the point is not that everyone should go into finance. It's that people with a moral purpose will discover that there's power in the technology. When you study finance, you are studying how to make things happen on a big scale, on a lasting scale. That has to matter more than getting into Google and programming some little gimmick.
Can I go now? I made a quick list of what finance gave us. Collateralized debt obligations, credit default swaps, structured investment vehicles, subprime loans, the housing bubble, credit default stops. It's such a long list. It just goes on and on and on. The economic meltdown. And then look at what Google has given us over the last 10, 15 years. Search. Now you can find anything anywhere. YouTube, you can watch videos of this online, and you can experience what the world is doing. Maps. Whenever you travel anywhere, you're now Google mapping it and getting where you want to do. And then what's facilitating mobile? Android, the Android operating system. And then you have the web browsers. And then if you look forward a little bit, Google is developing, for example, the Google car. If you read about the Google car, that could revolutionize transportation worldwide. Imagine not having accidents. Imagine being productive when you drive. When you have self-driving cars, imagine not needing bumpers because cars don't crash into each other, not needing traffic, not having to own cars, Google cars. Google Loon, which is now an internet facility delivered by Wi-Fi, or Google Fiber, which is going to automate cities. If you start going through the things which Google is doing, you'll be blown away. We're talking about changing the dynamics of cities, changing the dynamics of life. Look at how our lives have changed over the last 10 to 15 years with the internet and all the good things it brought. But more important than that, we use Google generically. I'm not just going to talk about Google. There's a lot of pessimism about industry, about society, about the world, about shortages, about the fact we're going to run out of food, energy, water, there's going to be hunger everywhere. My view after being in the technology world is that the exact opposite is happening, that the United States is reinventing itself. Just as happens every 30 or 40 years, the US is in the middle of a major rebound. It's being driven by technology. It's being driven by innovators. We all know about how computing has advanced. The iPhones, the smartphones you carry in your pockets have more computing power than existed on the entire planet the day I was born. Some of you are younger than I am. But these are supercomputers we have in our pocket. That's how computing has advanced exponentially. The same advances are happening in medicine, in robotics, in AI, in nanotechnology. I can go on field after field after field. And what that means is that we're now going to be able to solve grand challenges of humanity. I'll give you an example. Start with the humanity itself. Start with us. The human genome was first sequenced about 12 years ago. It cost billions of dollars to get there. Today, you can do full human genome sequencing for about $3,000. Soon, it'll cost $0 to do a complete human genome sequence. Why is this important? It's important because it means that we've become software. Just like you do searches on Google, you'll be able to do searches on the diseases we have. You'll be able to correlate them with genes. You'll be able to correlate them with lifestyles, with habits. So the same tools that have brought you Google search, imagine that bringing you search for cures for health. At the same time, we have advances happening in robotics to the point that as of this year, it's cheaper to manufacture in the United States than it is in China. The value chains haven't caught up. There are massive investments involved, but move forward 5 or 10 years. Despite how much Stephen Roach hypes China, China is doomed. Manufacturing is not only coming back to the United States, it's going to become a local industry everywhere. Soon, after you have robotics, you'll have 3D printing. 3D printing is going to put the robots out of business. At the same time, you have advances happening in nanomaterials. We're talking about nanobytes, nanomolecules that go inside your body and now do what you saw in Fantastic Voyage. We're headed into an era in which we're talking about unlimited food, unlimited energy, unlimited water, being able to 3D print our houses, a much better society. I'm not talking about science fiction. I'm not talking about decades from now or what your children will experience. I'm talking about things that will happen in your lifetime. The Google car you can see driving around in California today. It's driven 500,000 miles without a single accident. Give it 5 or 10, maximum worst case scenario, 15 years, and we'll all be going around in Google cars. And the traffic mess you see outside in New York City won't exist anymore. We spend 40% of our land space on parking. We won't need it anymore because cars will drop us where we want to do, thanks to the work Google is coming into this. So would you rather have your children going and cooking up the financial system, engineering the financial system, and creating more problems for us, more meltdowns, more bubbles like what my esteemed friend is famous for? Or would you rather have them saving the world? It's a binary thing. I can't even believe I'm having this debate, let alone with a Nobel Prize winner.
Okay. Greg, have you got a question for Bob?
I have a lot of questions.
One question for Bob and then one for Vivek.
Okay, so I guess my one question is, we know that finance helps financially support a lot of these tech companies, a lot of the wonderful things that Vivek talks about. But when we talk about brilliant engineers concocting all of these wonderful mathematical algorithms and engineering, a lot of that seems to me to go into high-frequency trading, a lot of the things that kind of hurt the financial industry. So when you're thinking about an engineer, how can an engineer use his mental horsepower to help people through the finance industry more than going into Google?
Right. Well, I thought it was interesting that Vivek, in his description of Google, was focusing on their investment banking division, in effect, because all those things that for example, self-driven cars, that's not Google technology, or maybe it involves it. They must have brought in other people. They're acting like a venture capitalist when they do that. They're bringing, you have engineers doing all these amazing things. I think we need more engineers than we need finance people. But we need a lot of finance people to help provide the resources for them to do these things. But I tell my students that I wish there were more engineers who would take my class. To me, it's not a choice between Google and Goldman. Of course, you have to pick one or the other when you graduate. But your life career involves both. In fact, in my latest Project Syndicate column, I propose the Nobel Foundation should add a Nobel Prize for engineering.
Completely agree.
And so that's out there. I admire, my father was an engineer. But we need finance too. In fact, engineers are increasingly studying finance. It's an important part of an engineering education.
Okay, so I'm going to jump in on my question to you, Bob, because I mean, one of the things that struck me most soon after the financial crisis in 2008 was hearing Paul Volcker talk about how the lowest point in his life was when his grandson said, "Grandpa, when I grow up, I want to be a financial engineer." He just said, and then he basically, after the financial crash happened, he called up his grandson and said, it's all your fault. And his grandson said, "Oh, no, I was just doing what I was told to do." And Volcker actually said, "No, you can't use the Nuremberg defense for financial engineering." I mean, is financial engineering just, is there anything it can solve?
I was actually the graduation speaker for a class of the University of California at Berkeley financial engineering program. And so they brought me in. I believe in but what is financial engineering? It's the application of mathematics, basically, to understanding risk management. And these things that you describe as so evil are not evil.
So what can financial engineering solve that other engineering can't?
Financial engineering is not new. It goes back. So, for example, one example I like to give is comparing the effect of earthquakes in Haiti with the earthquakes in the United States. Haiti had this horrible earthquake. How many people died? 50,000 people died. People were homeless because their homes were collapsed. When we have an earthquake in the United States, 20 people die, and there's nobody homeless. Why is the difference? It's because we have insurance. And there is this thing now, there's a Caribbean finance insurance initiative trying to bring it to these people, but they don't have it. You easily, naively imagine that there will be some charity that will come through, well, some of it did, but it wasn't adequate.
Matthew, I want equal time over here.
Yeah, well, so Vivek, I'm going to put my question to you.
No, I want to answer the same questions first.
No, we're going to push you on, and Greg's going to have a question for you as well. My question for you is, you criticized the chairman of Twitter, and he called you the carrot top of academic sources, which I gather is a reference to a comedian.
Right.
And he basically, you accused Twitter of being a classic example of the Silicon Valley boys club, because it basically had no people of certain ethnic minorities on the board, all white men. They just
all men. That's the problem.
And so if you were, so
Silicon
get away from the
Valley is as
idealism.
sexist as Wall Street
so
is.
Wall Street is not, I think, as sexist and as racist as Silicon Valley.
I'm not sure, but I've worked on Wall Street. I know how we treat women on Wall Street. So let's not go there. But the fact is that
no, seriously, you're a woman. If you are a woman,
right.
would you go to Google or to Goldman?
Probably Google, because Google is more sensitive than Wall Street is. You have to work in the. I tell you, I worked at First Boston for many years. The way women are treated there is disgusting. So both are evil, and it's wrong in both cases to mistreat women or to mistreat minorities in that way. But getting back to what we can produce, the innovation is actually now in finance. The real innovation for entrepreneurs is coming from Silicon Valley. Look at now PayPal. Look at digital currencies. Look at crowdfunding.
Yeah, I think you're not answering my question. Greg, you've got a question for Vivek.
You worked in banking and technology. Do you need advanced mathematics and cutting-edge financial engineering to finance the Googles and the Facebooks, or can it be done by with a venture capitalist with some intuition?
Well, the cost of developing the technology that I talked about has dropped exponentially. You can have 2 kids in a garage right now building world-changing technologies. The type of sensors that can detect our health cost practically nothing. With DNA costs dropping, you can have a 14-year-old now writing search algorithms to come up with things. So the cost, it used to be 5 or 10 years ago, you needed millions of dollars, you needed a venture capital system, you needed an IPO system to innovate. You no longer need that. The cost of technology development has dropped to the point that innovators can do it on their own. They can borrow money from mom and dad. They can work just out of their garages. As long as they have enough money to eat, they can now do world-changing technologies. That's how much things have changed. I want my kids to go there. I want them to be saving the world and not be cooking up new financial instruments. We've got enough of that. Even if...
But to play devil's advocate, I mean, when Facebook IPO'd and Twitter is going to IPO, they still need bankers to finance
there are
some of that
enough
stuff.
bankers in the world. Even if we cut off the supply of talent to the financial services industry, for the next 30 years, we would do just fine, thank you. And as Volker said, the last great innovation was the ATM. We don't need any more innovations. Silicon Valley will take care of it for us.
Robert, you
We need a lot more innovations. We've benefited enormously from those in the past. There's a whole string of great financial innovation. I just mentioned the mortgage, the home mortgage. When you are young, you want to buy a house for your children. They want a yard and all that, but you don't have money when you're young. So you get a mortgage. That's very simple. But you know, lots of countries don't have a developed mortgage institution, so people end up unhappy. They're living
Isn't
with
that where
their
credit
parents.
default swaps came from? Isn't
Yes,
that
exactly.
where the subprime mortgages came from?
And so then there's the securitization.
That's where the innovation was.
But
the innovation was in cooking the system. We already have these instruments. We already have methods of funding. We don't want to be more creative in how you skim money off the top. That's what we're doing.
To give Robert, just to explain that, are there any recent innovations in the last 5 years with mathematics or algorithms in financial engineering
crowdfunding. That's transformative.
That make this mortgage
That sounds like finance to me.
Oh, can
possible?
I? Yeah. Well, crowdfunding
last
is
5 years,
one,
can you name anything that
Yes.
really advanced people's ability to buy a
I'll
home?
give you one. That's very relevant too because you're involved. It's the Benefit Corporation. That
Yes,
was invented.
absolutely.
And your Singularity University
Yes,
is
we're
a
a benefit corporate, absolutely.
So many people, it's so new. It's only 3 years old. Many people don't know what it is. But traditional finance has two main sectors, for-profit and non-profit. And let's not forget that there's non-profit finance. It's very important. But now the new thing is to put something halfway between. It's for-profit and non-profit. This sounds strange. It's an experiment.
It tells the board that you can do good. You don't have to just focus on the investors. You can also focus on social causes. This is why we made
Okay, at this point
University
you're both agreeing, so I think this is time for 2 or 3 questions quickly from...
I know that Robert and I chatted
quickly from the
before.
audience,
We
so,
agree on everything else also. I mean, he's
So
just taking a stance here.
let's have 2 or 3 rapid-fire questions. One right down the front here. Just very quickly, if you just say what your question is, who you are.
Thank you, Jesse Sandoval from Stanford. Talking about, you touched on innovation at the end. So in financial products, actually, I think you have the greatest amount of innovation in the sense that you can get a product to market more rapidly than you could in even technology. If you come up with an algorithm, you can deploy it the next day. Having said that, when you
Is there a question there?
Yeah, so the question is, where do you think the core of innovation lies in finance versus technology? Is it in the ability to deploy more quickly or the ability to generate a greater diversity of products?
Okay, we're going to take several questions.
I think
and then
you need more.
We'll take
more,
several questions from the
right.
audience and then you can respond to them. Greg, you want to pick someone?
Lady in the blue. Oh,
Yeah, lady in the middle there.
lady in the blue, and then we'll
Yeah,
come back to you.
we want equal time here.
Talking about Goldman versus Google, you spoke a lot about the actual macro level impact of those industries. But for me, as an upcoming graduate, economic graduate, for me it's much more interesting looking into, for example, the company culture of those two companies. And how would you, for example, defend the Goldman Sachs company culture compared to the Google company culture?
Okay, another question right at the back.
Innovation, company
right at the back,
culture.
and then the gentleman down. Well, you go now while the mic's going to the back.
Thank you. Quick question. Microfunding, crowdfunding, as it relates to a potential example where finance and innovation come together for good. Your thoughts on that would be interesting.
Okay, and right at the back there.
My question would be, as we've seen innovation progress, there seems to be a tendency for less competition, actually, where these large firms like Facebook and Google kind of snap up these upcoming companies as they rise. And I was wondering if you could speak to whether that's a function of furthering technology, of furthering finance, or if I'm wrong and really competition is increasing.
Monopolization, yeah.
Okay, Vivek, do you want to go first
All
in
right,
responding to any of those questions?
As far as acquiring small startups goes, it's good because it enriches the ecosystem. It gives small startups a way of becoming part of a bigger entity and getting the technology spread quite fast. Crowdfunding and all of these associated microfinance, they're great. The innovation's coming from Silicon Valley. That's the type of finance innovation I'd like to see versus the brain-dead, skim money off the top innovation. Sorry.
Do you want to respond to any of those questions?
Yeah, about Goldman company culture. John Whitehead was the head of Goldman for many years. He's in his 90s now, I guess. And he actually listed a state list of principles for Goldman people. There was a certain amount of idealism, but not one thing, they were really after making money, okay? But there was also a philanthropic side. Goldman has been relatively good on philanthropy. But the company culture is really important. And not all financial companies, some of them are, they should go to jail. So we have to have regulation, and we have to have young people who make discrimination when they take a job. And they must have a sense that they want to improve the culture of the company. But they will tend to look greedy to anyone who lends money and asks for it back is going to look greedy. And you'll never be loved the way Mother Teresa was. It just never will happen. But you'll know inside that you are a person of principle.
And Google does no evil, of course.
No, well, actually, Google is exemplary in Silicon Valley in terms of reaching out to the community, doing things. If you look at Google for Entrepreneurs, Google.org, if you look at a lot of the things that they're doing for the community, the reason why Google can get away with so much evil in hacking our data and knowing everything about us is because it does so much good. Its employees really have a really great culture. It's a company that I've been very critical of, but which blows me away with the culture that its people have. You don't see the same culture in Goldman Sachs. You don't see that anywhere on Wall Street.
Great. Do you have a last question for Robert? And
I understand that Goldman has philanthropy. I understand there's impact investing. Is there any good in the majority of finance?
Well, see,
No.
it's a technical system. You have prices that get out of line, and some people merely trade restoring. And they don't look good at all, but it's part of a system whose overall function brings us modern civilization. There is no country living like this country does that doesn't have these financial institutions.
Look, let's put our energy in saving the world. We want our kids to be building world-changing innovations versus world-changing financial skimming.
Great. Well, I think you've basically covered the waterfront. So let's go for a vote.
Whoever wins gets the Nobel Prize, so please.
So all those who would advise Google still after having heard that passionate defense of Goldman from Bob Schiller, all those in favor of Google. And now all those in favor of Goldman Sachs. I think you've won. You keep your Nobel Prize.
It's about 50-50.
Yeah, from 2-1 in favor of Google.
I think Robert convinced me. I don't know who.
No,
how many people switch? How many people switch
recount?
sides? There we go.
We need to count dimple Chads now.
Great. Well, I mean, what a spirited debate. Thank you very much for the two of you. That's stimulating. Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.